Well, as I said earlier, I believe in small business, and that means big business in Illinois, and certainly a big business in our state is Ford. Ever since I've been governor, I've worked directly with Ford Motor Company. As you know, they have many, many subcontractors, suppliers, service businesses. So a lot of the technology that may come into an electric vehicle here that's being developed by All Cell Technologies could end up in a Ford or another company's vehicle for electric vehicles. Now we're happy that the UAW and Ford, I have a very close relationship with the UAW as well as Ford. They came to a meeting of the minds. The members of the UAW still have to ratify the agreement, so we don't want to put our chicken. We're not ready to fully announce anything until the agreement is ratified by the members. But it's very promising. Basically, the company is interested in investing $200 million in the state of Illinois, not only on the south side of Chicago, but also their stamping plant located in Chicago Heights in the suburbs. Right now, Ford is making the Taurus, the Explorer, a Lincoln vehicle there. We have a very good opportunity to get a police interceptor, a third shift. In order to make all this possible, when we got the Explorer, we had to work with the company in cooperation. We had to put together an incentive package that was very helpful to them. And we're doing the same thing right now. In order to get a new shift of workers, literally hundreds and hundreds of new workers, and that means more businesses for the suppliers and the contractors. So my job as governor is not to talk about who gets the credit. We want to make sure the credit goes to the workers of Illinois, hard-working men and women with great skills, great work ethic. We want to put them back to work. We don't want anybody on the sidelines unemployed. So that's a never-ending mission as far as I'm concerned. And I really look forward to working with the company to have a good announcement in the near future. I talked to their one of their leaders yesterday, and it's very promising for our state. And I think when you have a governor of a big state like Illinois working with a great company like Ford, you can go miles and miles.
Speaking of electric vehicles, you talked, I guess, with Mitsubishi. Could you tell us what that conversation was like and what's the prospect?
Well, the CEO, we had a good meeting at the Mitsubishi headquarters in Tokyo. I drove one of their electric vehicles. I didn't drive. I was a passenger with somebody. They drive on a different side of the road there. So he drove, I watched. But I went through the streets of Tokyo in this electric vehicle that Mitsubishi is making. And then we had dinner that night. And Mitsubishi, as you know, is located in Normal, Illinois. And we would like them to consider, building their electric vehicle business. And we had a productive conversation about that. I think there's going to be great opportunity in Illinois. We want to be the electric vehicle capital of the United States, and we're well on our way to doing that. Having charging stations is indispensable to making sure these vehicles, which basically cost 1 cent a mile, there's very little cost for the fuel because there's no need for petroleum in an electric vehicle. And we don't want any of our motorists in Illinois to be beholden to foreign potentates and a stranglehold over our energy supply, our oil. So it's much better to have alternatives. That's really what this is. I also in China visited with a company, a major company there that builds electric vehicles. We want to make sure they're interested in Illinois. We were able to get a Goldwind technology, which is building a wind farm right here in our state of Illinois in the home county of President Ronald Reagan, who grew up in Lee County near Dixon. This wind farm is a very major development for Illinois. It's a Chinese company, but they're buying a lot of components and building this in our own state. So there's a lot of other things we did, and I think the key is exports to other countries to create jobs here for Illinois businesses. We were able to make some headway there, but we also want to get investment from both Japan, China, and other places in Illinois creating jobs, and that's real important.
Governor, you mentioned in the budget talks, Speaker Madigan says he's willing to move money around per your request, but will not increase the bottom line.
Well, I already said that myself. We have a basic limit on how much the budget will be for this fiscal year. I think there are things that can be reallocated within the budget, within the limit. to make things better. And so I think the veto session of the legislature, which will begin later this month, be an opportunity to work together on those corrections or reallocations. You know, I've already had Mike Madigan in my office a couple times, as well as other leaders, and I think we can have a very productive veto session.
You know, the Civic Federation reported last week that we're going to end this current fiscal year $2.8 billion deeper in debt than we started in effective spending.
Yeah.
$2.8 billion more than we're bringing in.
Well, in this fiscal year, it's about even. The revenues are going pretty well for Illinois, and the major areas of revenue that the state receives. There won't be much of a difference between the expenditures this fiscal year and the revenues that we derive. We may actually have more revenues than expenditures. We have to deal with a mountain of debt that I inherited years, you know, that was years in making. Mostly to do with the pension payments over the years that weren't paid. This is Republican and Democratic legislatures and governors. They didn't pay a lot of these bills, and I inherited that when I got sworn in. We're dutifully going through that. I do believe that we'll be able to carve down some of the bills being paid that need to be paid for this fiscal year. We just have to get strong economic recovery as the very best way to deal with the budget deficit of the state. I think we should never forget the best way to pay the bills is to have more people working. And so that's what I work on every day. A robust economy is the best way for Illinois to have the revenue necessary to pay its bills.
What do you tell those workers who are at meetings that start today trying to stop the closures of facilities?
Well, you know, we have to have a limit on the spending. That's what the General Assembly adopted. And I signed that budget, and there are consequences for that. Illinois has had for years many institutions with respect to the care of those with developmental disabilities and mental health. I do believe that the movement will be away from institutions and towards community care, which is a model that I think our state needs to embrace. This is the beginning, and we'll visit with all these various hearings that will be taking place and lay out our plan. We can't spend money we don't have, and if we're going to do this right, we have to do it in a caring manner, in a way that honors those who are residents of our facilities, and make sure that we do it in a proper and humane fashion.
But the reports filed with Congress say you have close to 3,000 people all told lose jobs. That more than wipes out any gains you would get by adding another shift over at Ford. How can the state continue to do that to its own economy?
Well, with respect to Ford, you have to understand there's a multiplier effect. Anytime a big company like Ford adds, say, 2,000 jobs, that magnifies over. Their ratio is about 10 to 1. So I think you need to take a look at that. With respect to the public sector, I am sensitive to the fact that anybody who has a job, whether it's public or private, it's important to them, it's important to everybody in Illinois. But when the legislature adopts a budget and we have to tighten our belts, decisions have to be made in order to make the economies necessary to get through the fiscal year. Basically, we have large institutions in Illinois with respect to mental health, developmental disabilities, other things like that, and we are going to have to examine that and determine that we're not going to have as many institutions in the future. We're going to have much more emphasis on community care, which is more economical, and in many cases, many people feel more humane.
What about prisons? I mean, there was a study that came out today. We're already overcrowded. Assaults on prison guards are up, and you would propose housing some prisoners in gyms.
Well, the legislature adopted a corrections budget. We heard a question earlier about reallocation. I'm willing to consider that, but I have to deal with what the legislature adopted as the budget for the Department of Corrections. If they wish to invest more money in the Department of Corrections by reallocating money from somewhere else, I'm certainly willing to engage in that conversation.